Okay, we'll go ahead and reconvene the special meeting of the Folsom City Council. At the city attorney, do we have anything to report out?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. No final action.
Okay, with that, go ahead and adjourn the special meeting of the Folsom City Council and call to order the regular meeting of the Folsom City Council for Tuesday, July 24th. If the clerk please call the roll.
Council members Howell.
Here.
Morin.
Here.
Sheldon. Gaylord.
Here.
And Miklos.
Here, if you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everybody. Happy you could join us in this nice, cool evening, at least inside. So with that, we'll move under after the pledge. So if you call the next item, Ms. Clerk.
Your next item is agenda updates. You have one update tonight. Item 7A has additional information that has been provided to the council members and is available to the public at the back table.
Okay, so that's 7A. Next item.
Your next item is business from the floor. You have one request to speak tonight from Mike Barnbaum.
Okay, Mike, if you come forward, you got 3 minutes to address us on any item not on the agenda. I know that you know that, but I had to say it anyways. Hi, Mike, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. Good. Thank you.
Sure, sir.
Yes, for the audience and members watching at home on Channel 14, Mike Barnbaum, and I want just to provide the council an update from last night's meeting. Folsom was highlighted quite a bit, and other business was as well. So we just want to let you know, in the general manager's report last night provided by Henry Lee.
You're talking about the RT meeting last night?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. The late night service kicked off on Father's Day for light rail on the Gold Line to Folsom. And one of the events that happened just shortly after the kickoff of that night service was the Folsom Pro Rodeo. So we highlighted the evening ridership in Folsom on his report, as well as hoping to get some, inducing some marketing to get people to know about the service and to utilize the service now that it's regular service to most any other event in the city of Folsom, as well as getting Folsom residents to know you can get to events along the line in Rancho Cordova or Sacramento and get back to Folsom late night without worrying that the train's only going to go as far as sunrise. In his report, there was also an update, Electrify America grants coming in for 2 potential candidate routes, one providing shared operation with YOLO bus from UC Davis Medical Center to UC Davis in Davis, with stops both in downtown Sacramento and a stop in West Sacramento. The hope is, talking to staff offline, to get that started in early 2019 with compressed natural gas, and then switching over to the electric buses upon their arrival in about 20 months from now. But one of the highlights of the meeting last night was a special presentation in honor to Bob Holderness, who is in the audience this evening. The Glen Drive Light Rail Station is now the Glen Drive Robert G. Holderness Attorney at Law Station. So we want to congratulate.
Is he now running phone numbers? 1-800-CALL Bob G or something?
No. It is a formal title of the station awarded to Bob, his civic duties and duties in the region that he has contributed and very glad that that action officially took place last night.
Well, thank you.
If there's any other RT business, we'll turn it over to Andy under council comments. We'll give him 9 minutes. Thank
No,
you.
we won't. We'll give them 3.
Triple the 3.
There you go. Thank you, Michael, appreciate it. Okay, any other items for business from the floor?
No.
Okay, seeing none, go ahead and call the next item, please.
Your next item tonight is your consent calendar.
I'd like to pull A and H.
Pull H as well. All right, I'll go ahead and move everything, but, oh, you got something to pull, Ernie?
I'm gonna pull, just for comment, E
Is that E, is in echo?
and, excuse me, H,
Yeah, it's been pulled.
And got that.
Been pulled twice already.
L.
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 Andy, you want to try that again?
Oh, boy, okay, let's see, I'll move everything except A, H, E, and L.
Second.
Okay, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Howell?
Yes.
Moran?
Yes.
Sheldon?
Yes.
Gaylord?
Yes.
And Miklos.
Yes, 6A, Ms. Clerk?
6A is approval of the June 26 special regular meeting minutes.
I'd like to have a correction added to that, and it relates to new business item 8A, the last comment from members of the public. The way that's worded, that was not the question that was asked, and that's not the way the question was answered. The question that Ms. Ferrer asked was, are the red line documents from planning commissioners or city council members available to the public? And I explained when I showed my piece of paper with the marks on it, that no, those are not retained, those are our personal property, and we either take them or throw them away. And I think her question then became, are comments, written comments that the public submits on the document, are those available? And that was the point at which City Attorney Ms. Wong said that, yes, that in fact is available. So I just wanted to clarify that because this was misconstrued the way it was written. So if we could make that change,
Want us to bring them back for approval at the next meeting?
if you want.
Yeah, let me do that.
Okay, I trust you. So whatever you want to do.
Yep, we'll do it.
And with that correction made, I'll move the item.
I'll second. Go ahead and call the roll on the item.
Councilmember Howell?
Yes.
Moran?
Yes.
Sheldon? Gaylord?
Yes.
And Miklos.
Yes, item E, 6E.
Okay, I'm,
Well,
Okay,
go ahead
I'm
and have
on
the clerk read the item so people know
Okay.
what it is. So go ahead and read item 6E, please. I'm sorry.
Item 6E is appointment of the city manager to the Folsom Tourism Economic Development Corporation Board of Directors.
Ernie?
okay, that's sort of a routine when we're switching the city managers, and I have no problem with that, that's natural. But I want to take the opportunity at this time to speak as one councilman that I'm not at all satisfied with the feedback that I get from this committee plus the tourism. There's 5 of us on this council, and we're all equal in getting information back. And what we get or do not get, I have not seen a minute from FedCorp for years. And that's not under, you say, why do I ask? I shouldn't have to be asked. As a councilman, I should be provided this. So I'm just asking the city manager to take steps to be sure that that happens to all 5 of us. Now, 2 sit on the committee, so they may get it somehow through the distribution. I do not get it. I want to get it. And I'm just saying right now, in the future, my 2.5 years left on this council, I'm going to insist on accountability from the groups that are being supplied financially from the city. We are obligated to the people that own the money that we give out to know what's being done with it and what's going. And I'll say one thing in FedCorp. Don't want someone to tell me that it's classified and sensitive, and I don't have to know it because I might tell somebody and kill a deal. That's unacceptable to this councilman. That's unacceptable. We have privileged documents within our group, so we know how to keep our mouth shut if that's what the wording should be. But to tell me I don't have to know because maybe I'm not sensitive to know not to talk about it. That's unacceptable. I'm a councilman. I represent a lot of people. 1 year was over 13,000. That means I'm entitled to know what we're doing down in FedCorp and also tourism specifically. So I'm just making the point now. I have no problem with the city manager assuming that position, and I think she'll take care of my concerns.
Sheldon, I will work with you to determine what information you're looking for and work with FedCorp.
Okay, and with that, I'll move the motion.
Arnie, just before we do that, I just want to point out, and I'm just asking the question.
Okay.
There's a number of other boards and commissions that we sit on where the city provides some element of funding. Are you interested in hearing what's going on in all of those other boards and commissions?
Well, a lot of the boards that you sit on, not that we don't provide necessary money, maybe we do. I can watch that on TV, and I think you all do a good job, an excellent job, in fact.
Okay, so anything
I don't
that's,
have a chance to absorb anything that goes on with the Tourism Foundation or the FedCorp. Okay, and it hasn't been the habit to feed that back to us. And I'm not
Okay.
criticizing, but I just want the minutes to come back.
no, I was just wondering if you wanted to hear what was going on at STA and Regional SAN and
No.
AQMD and all the other ones.
I
Okay.
have the opportunity to observe you on them boards. I watch it often, and I think everything's good, satisfies me.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, I'll second his motion and call the roll on the item unless there's further discussion. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Howell?
Yes.
Moran?
Yes.
Sheldon?
Yes.
Gaylord?
Yes.
And Miklos?
Yes, and.
And I pulled H because I'm going
I'm going
to,
to let city clerk read that one first so people know what
sorry.
we're doing. That's okay.
Item H is resolution number 10159, a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute amendment number 1 to the agreement with Quincy Engineering for professional engineering services for the Hinkle Creek Sewer Maintenance Project.
and I'm going to recuse myself because this is a contractual issue and they are a client of mine, so I'll see
Okay.
you guys when you're done.
Okay, and I believe
I'm leaving.
you wanted to pull it first, Ernie, so once you start us off, or you want Marcus to present the item first? Have Marcus present?
Well, let me just introduce why I'm pulling it off, and
Okay.
then we turn to Marcus, and I'll come back. I'm pulling this off because I had a request to look at this item from residents in my area, and on concerns about Hinkle Creek, and that generated a significant meeting this afternoon. But before I discuss and explain that meeting that I had with the mayor, Marcus, and the city manager, I'll let Marcus indicate what this is about. Marcus did tonight provide me with the initial contract, because I wanted to see what was the first one, to know that we're not duplicating the authorization, the second one. But at that, I'll stop and let Marcus take over and then come back.
Alrighty, Mayor Miklos, members of the council, Marcus Yasutaki, Environmental and Water Resources Director. I just have 4 quick slides just to give you an idea of what we're looking at in the field, but just if you had specific questions about the staff report, I can answer those in our discussion, but just wanted to let you know kind of what we're looking at and why some of the additional work identified in the staff report is required. First, I do want to point out that as we discussed last summer, there is not going to be a permanent access road built in the Hinkle Creek Nature Area. So I want to be clear that, one, there is not going to be a permanent access road built. So that, and then second, we are working on project bid alternatives or separate bid packages in which we can bring back to council, which will have a couple items in each, which city council will have the opportunity to basically make a decision. One is, it's going to look at what typical construction methods that we would see in the field relate to. The second is an alternative bid or a separate bid that identifies maybe the non-use of a construction access road or specific type of equipment that doesn't require a construction access road to be built. And I have a picture or a slide of what that looks like as well. So it's my understanding, after our discussion, but prior to our discussion, and working with Everett previously, Elaine now, and then also with the city attorney's office, that we are planning to present at least 2 different alternatives in terms of a bid package that city council will be able to evaluate and determine, based on the low bid procedure of which route you will go. And that will include cost impacts as well as the environmental impacts related to trees and mitigation type of impacts. So that will all be presented before city council, before any decisions made for us. And that would come at a future date when we bid the project. But here, This is a crossing that currently exists. It's a non-permitted crossing over Hinkle Creek. So what that means is if anything is done to this to move it, to even work on it or expand it, because it's not permitted requires a permit. So we have a question in with our environmental consultant to see exactly what the extent of that means. Could we reinforce it without doing any work within the bank, within the flood zone, or within the riparian habitat? Does that constitute a new structure? So we have that question in, but what we are proposing within the amendment before you tonight is a safer, more structurally sound crossing in this area. We have had to, about 2 years ago, actually drive a backhoe over this to access this portion here. This portion is fairly flat, so once our staff was able to get back into this location, really wasn't a problem digging to the sewer line and repairing the sewer line. But in my opinion, in our staff's opinion, this really isn't a safe crossing if we have to do that again. So because of that, in order to design and build something, structurally sound and safe for crossing, we would have to evaluate the impacts of that floodplain within this stream, as well as identify what the permitting requirements are in order to build that structure. So that's a majority of what is included in the amendment contract this evening. There's some additional surveying work and things that are needed, but a majority of that is to evaluate under a hydraulic analysis, the structural analysis of the new structure that would go in, and the related environmental impacts that have to be studied under CEQA. So those are kind of the three main ideas within the amendment this evening. This is that second alternative that I was discussing about identifying a certain maybe type of equipment, or identifying that a contractor just would not have the ability to build a temporary construction access road to deliver the project in the field. Once that project is complete, as we discussed last time, we would restore to as prior to construction conditions as we can. We would replant as many trees as we had to under our mitigation requirements within the Hinkle Creek Nature Center, as many as we could within that. If we had leftover trees because we just couldn't plant enough within the space that's allowable, we would have to figure out ways and where to plant those. But one clear discussion that I have had prior to Elaine becoming the city manager with Everett is we weren't going to go into this and just put money into a tree mitigation fund. That wasn't the goal and really wasn't the objective at the end of this. And so we are truly, if we have to mitigate and plant 60 trees, we're going to do as much as we can to put those 60 trees of different sizes and types within the Hinkle Creek Nature Area. So that would also be an item that comes back before City Council. So those numbers aren't set in stone. It's just an example. If we had to do that, that's what our plan is to deliver. This is the type of excavation equipment that we've been discussing with the Hinkle Creek Nature Group. And you can see it's a specialized piece of equipment, doesn't require necessarily a flat construction access road as standard construction equipment does with either an excavator or a backhoe. So that would be a second alternative bid that we would include, which then allows City Council to identify, okay, what does this type of equipment do in terms of how many trees would need to be taken out to build the project, but also just what it costs to deliver the project with this type of equipment versus what I would call the conventional construction equipment.
So in an analysis to build a project, so knowing that thing has to come in from a different access, in your analysis, you'll describe what potential impacts it could be coming down a hill or wherever it's going to be coming in from. That needs to be factored into the actual project analysis as far as impacts?
That is correct,
okay.
Yes. So, each contractor would have to evaluate basically if they had to come in from the Oak Avenue side and crossing here, what does that mean? And then in this map, if they decided to use access that's here, maybe there isn't any physical impact here because they can get their equipment through, but then what does that mean as they move along the alignment in this direction and down to here? And so those would be two, or basically a separate sheet that identifies what those impacts are in terms of the tree impacts. We will have other brush and shrub impacts, but we don't have a mitigation requirement, for the non-protected species out there. And so this, I just wanted to show this real quick. This is the sewer alignment, manhole 1, 2, 3, 4, coming down this direction, and this is where it crosses underneath Hinkle Creek here, and out in this direction. And this is the proposed area where we would have a permanent bridge crossing when we're done. But this area here shown in, it's like a light blue grayish color, that is what we're proposing to be about a 5-foot wide walking path or walking trail when we're done. And that's to provide our city staff a safe, flat area to bring their non-mechanical equipment, the wheelbarrow, shovels, in order to respond to a sewer overflow if we needed to get out there. That, as I mentioned, there is no permanent access road, and that was pretty clear from our last meeting, and we do not propose to do that with this amendment, nor with this project when we get to project delivery.
So with this amendment, is there a number of trees that you're suggesting are going to be impacted?
I'm sorry, is there a number of trees that
Or will be impacted?
not with the physical, not with the amendment of the actual contract itself. So what Quincy will also do with an arborist is identify the best that they can based on the tree survey they did, and as best as they can in identifying what route a construction access road could take, and identify within, and that's the yellow shaded area here. What they will be able to do is look at the limits of where that road, construction access road, would be, and identify within that how many trees are impacted, basically either fully impacted because they have to come out no matter what, or have a greater than a 20% tree canopy impact, which, when we talked to the arborist that prepared the report and other arborists in the field, that's roughly, 30% or more, basically is a nice indication in the field that it's likely that tree would not survive or has a very minimal percentage of survival. And so we're using 20% to be more conservative than, a 30% number.
So two other questions. What's the cost of that specialized, am I stealing your thunder?
No, we're not there yet, but go ahead.
That's what this approval's for.
Go ahead, ask your question, no matter.
No, if it's,
But the point is, the next lead on that I come is to what we committed him and his group to do, without much opposition, we'll probably answer what you're asking.
well, the issue
But
I
you
have
a
is
good
that it's
question.
not no information has come before RFP for a money ask to council or UC commission, so it's just very
No,
ambiguous.
can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me try to help. Okay. When we had this meeting today at the request of the residents that responded, and you were out of town, or I would have brought you in at the time. We wanted to reaffirm what the city council said last summer when Mayor Moran was the mayor. What we understood, because we did have a question with the state, they answered and took care of the mandatory building a road to handle heavy equipment, particularly the vacuum truck. Okay, that was cleared up to our satisfaction. It was not state directed. So the guidance from the council, as I understood it, and I think all the council and the Mayor Mikolas reaffirmed the direction that Mayor Andy did last summer, and that you understood that the guidance was protect the trees, take a look at the cost when we get with the comparison between the conventional construction and the spider, which is the unconventional. Take a look at that. And Andy mentioned particularly that there may be a cost factor that we normally wouldn't consider to save the trees if that comes to be a consideration. And now, what's on the agenda tonight, which I pulled, was before we authorize another $205,000. It's quite often in Folsom, and I guess we built so fast over the 30 years that I've been around, sometimes we don't know what's out there until we get out there. And this is an example of all the commitments with the water problem and the mitigation that we have to do with all the state agencies and federal agencies. This is primarily going to solve that, which wasn't in the original contract, which I asked and was given this afternoon, the original contract back last year, to be sure we weren't duplicating, double dipping, and that's not the case as I can read it. But what's going to come out of this is you're going to have 2 RFPs go out, conventional and non-conventional, and they're going to address and you're going to indicate in there specifically, now correct me if I misunderstood our agreement at the end of the day, you're going to have a specific caveat in there that says trees are a primary aspect, because I understand how you describe the mitigation of trees, which is a standard city policy. But it's hard to mitigate an oak tree that maybe takes twice as old as me to get to be where it is, and we may have to take it down. So it's much more concern, I think, to this council, and I know to many, many people in this town, that it's not just the tree, it's the size and the type and how long does it take to come back, okay? And so we're real sensitive, and the council gave direction, which you understood, and you've been acting that way, although maybe some people misinterpreted, but I'm convinced that you did not forget what we gave as, what the military says, marching orders. Okay, and you were marching that, but we got a little bit confused and required us to restate our original last summer direction. And this will bring back 2 RFP responses with cost analysis as to how much, and it specifically will point out how much the conventional, how many trees will have to be replaced, and on the other one, how many trees. So we can have a comparison of what are we doing. And at that time, it comes back to the council to accept whoever bid we want to accept. And we'll have a new council, pretty much so. At that time, I'm sure that the standard value of the environment and the trees in this town will not change with any new council. That's Folsom. We appreciate our green, and we want to keep our green. And we don't mind spending a few extra bucks to keep that green, okay? That's, I don't care if it's Hinkle Creek or Willow Creek or what other creek it is. That's our goal, is my goal, and I feel it's most of our goals. So when it comes back, you'll have that data that we'll be able to see as to trees under conventional, trees under the non-conventional, the cost for both sides, and then that would be a council decision to make as to which way we authorize the Marcus and his people to go. Now, I asked Steve to reinforce it, what I said. Is that what we agreed upon? I think it is.
That's absolutely accurate. And again, to the Vice Mayor's point, and Marcus said at the very beginning, the emphasis here, so people don't get sidetracked or react in rumor, the council policy and direction with the vote last year was no permanent road when we're done. The emphasis tonight, when everyone that's out here that's here for this item leaves the room and everybody watching, there will be no permanent road in that area when it is done. And so the Vice Mayor summed it very well, and Roger zeroed in on what we did. And as I share with folks, you know, we gave him the marching orders, so he identified the first phase. What do we have to do? And now he knows what we have to do. Now the second phase is, how do we get there? That's what this is about tonight. The last phase is, who's going to do it and how much and what are we going to save, and all the analysis that the Vice Mayor Marcus just said. So yes, it is an accurate description of what we talked about this afternoon.
And one other thing I asked Marcus and the city manager to do, because I assume, good Lord's willing, I'll be here when that RFP comes before us. But before, when you're ready to send the RFP out, if you'd have the courtesy to let us look at it, to see that the RFP satisfies what I think we're asking for, just in description. I'm not an engineer. I'm not going to try to steal any thunder that you have. I'm just going to be a layman, a representative of the layman in this town. That does it do what we want to do, okay? And Marcus and the city manager assures me that we'll have a look at it. It doesn't only have to be me. It can be other Roger or whoever's around at that time to look at. Just so before you send it out, that you're sending out what we want to be sent out, and what comes back will come back, and then we'll make a professional judgment of the council as to which way we're going to go. It'll be cost, or it'll be environmental, or it'll be a combination of mitigation in between.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I'm not entirely sure from a legal perspective that's something that's workable. If what I'm hearing is the council would like to review the RFP, especially with components as complex as this project is supposed to entail, before the RFP goes out, that would require, I suppose, an agendized item before the whole council, and then the council would then individualize.
Let me clarify that and maybe take care of your concerns.
Okay,
I'm
please
not
do.
asking to look what an engineer would look or what a planning director would look. I'm not doing that.
The policy statement.
It's a policy statement that we're going on there that says to the people that's going to bid that tree preservation and environmental concerns are a paramount priority for the city council. That's what I'm asking for, not necessarily what's in the actual construction of the RFP. That would be pretty arrogant on my part or any of us up here.
I appreciate that. Thank you for the clarification, Mr. Vice Mayor.
No, we're not going to do, we just want a statement that goes on this, that says this is a priority of this council.
May I
And that we're
suggest-
directing Marcus to do this.
Yes, sir. May I suggest that we use exactly what you just said in the RFP opening statement?
And
So
actually,
that,
and I'm glad you said that because that was the agreement that was reached, not agreement, that was a direction from the mayor and the vice mayor
Right.
and the city manager, and Marcus agreed. In fact, he actually told us he was planning on doing it before we even asked the question. And all he's doing, so my colleagues know, is he's taken the statement that we made very strongly when we approved what we need to do in there, and that actually becomes the header as a policy statement before they read the rest of the RFP. Marcus is already planning to do that. So that was the
Now,
only thing the
that
vice
is
mayor was
not
referring to.
in the consideration I polled as far as awarding the 205,000 contract. That's in, when they get done with theirs and make a recommendation and you modify it or fix it or whatever. And
So-
when, before that goes out, that's where we want that statement.
So Councilmember Sheldon, just to answer that, yes, we, and I can work with Elaine and/or Steve, and we can provide, hey, here's 2 sentences that we put at the beginning of the notice to contractors. We can put it in another section where we're identifying the tree count just to reinforce that point. But that's language that we, the city, would provide to the consultant, and it's a cut and paste, and they put it into the bid documents.
Correct.
And I think that's what we all, unless, and I want to hear from these guys, I mean, that was one of the things that Ernie and I suggested to Elaine and Marcus, that the policy statement about our tree preservation mitigation was one of the most compelling factors and need to be addressed when they first get the bid package, so you don't go spend 5 or 6 days, all of a sudden they see towards the end of the bid package, whoops, I missed this part. They want to see the policy statement from the city council first.
Well, and the other part is, I mean, everything that Councilmember Sheldon just said isn't clear within this specific agenda item. So it would have just been like, hey, we're asking for money, here's the thing, here's what we're going to do. So it's very unclear to us, but it's also very unclear to the residents who are concerned about it. I want to make sure that that's not a low bid consideration. I want to make sure that we're looking at exactly what we're trying to protect here and what they came to us last year and what we basically promised them we would work on. So.
Well, let me jump in again, if you don't mind. I don't think it will be a low bid necessary or mandatory, because the guidance from Mayor Moran at the time and confirmed by Mayor Mikolas is that trees preservation might mitigate cost values. Okay, so, and that's the way
I
they're
just want to see this
doing
go to
it.
the UC Commission and just have more discussion and dialogue before it comes to agenda item where none of this stuff that we just talked about is listed in here. I don't see conditional, non-conditional, I don't see anything like that. I just see we're looking for this, we've already created the RFP, we've never seen the RFP, and then it takes a meeting that we're not privy to because of.
There's no RFP.
Well, we have not, Councilmember Gaylord, we have not created an RFP. What this work is going to do, and I believe it's analyzed in the staff report, is to develop these alternatives, which would allow us, the city, to bid this project with an alternative method of construction, if, just to keep it, I think, fairly straightforward. We are not providing an RFP at this point with this amendment that's going forward. What this is allowing us to do is to identify what an alternative in an RFP or a bid package would include. I did have this discussion with the city attorney as well on just how to proceed legally through the public contracting code and bidding documents. And we can't necessarily just pick and choose options and combine them. And so that's why we decided to bid the project, but physically put two different bid packages out, because then when the city receives those bids, we could provide that information to city council, and city council can ultimately, if they so choose to, reject all bids altogether. They could reject all bids under the conventional construction method alternative, but, and Mr. Wong can correct me if I'm wrong, but if city council chose to select the basically the construction method that's, not used as much, or this crawling equipment, that project would have to be selected based on low bid. But city council would have the option to reject the conventional technique bid altogether, and then only select the low bid from the non-conventional method.
Yeah, so two-step process.
Yeah, and actually, that's not a problem, because as we state, the primary purpose is correction of the problem of the sewer and realignment, and preservation of the environmental aspect of Hinkle Creek. And whether they use the spider, they use the conventional, it will come down to a cost factor and maybe a tree mitigation. But we're telling them that's the primary, they gotta pay attention when they're gonna fix both those problems, and tell us the response, what it costs us to do, and we'll make the choice.
Yes, that's correct. And that's exactly why we want to do at least two of these bid alternatives, so that you have the cost, impact, and mitigation requirements under one option. You have the cost, the impacts, and the mitigation requirements of the other. And then that provides council with the opportunity to reject these bids under this option and select this option, or reject all the bids under this option and select this option, or reject all bids altogether and direct staff to do something different.
What I'd like to do is kind of regroup here and go back to what the amendment is all about. And I appreciate, because, I wanted the vice mayor and certainly all of us to contribute. So you know what the after effect is going to be, but the amendment this evening is to be able to analyze all the things that have to be considered before we can ask the question of which option.
Correct.
Whether it be FEMA, riparian habitat, all that stuff. If we have to go into the creek, that could be Bureau of Reclamation, Fish and Wildlife, Fish and Game, all those things. So this amendment, to your point, Roger, is strictly asking for the approvals for these folks to be able to go out and identify all the different aspects we have before we can even create an RFP, because they've identified, we have a floodplain issue, we have this issue and that issue and that issue. So this is for them to create that. Once that information comes back in, then that goes to Marcus and his folks then and the city attorney to figure out how to create bid documents, then to answer all those questions, which again, will be presented to the city council before we make any kind of decision.
And to satisfy any concern that you're not getting the full disclosure because it's not on the written paper, what I told you and what the mayor confirms, and Matt Marcus and the city manager could confirm, this is exactly what we talked about at the 1 o'clock, or the 3 o'clock meeting. So it couldn't be a matter of record, maybe the legal officer says yes or no. But we are disclosing specifically, and that meeting was generated by, what are we doing? Okay? What are we doing with that report? And so I think it does satisfy to all concerned full disclosure. We're not hiding nothing. In fact, if anything, we just reaffirmed a strong council position that was taken last summer and hasn't really changed. Possibly in discussions and meetings that got maybe clouded a little bit, I think we reaffirmed where we were last year. And this is just a follow-up because of this. I pulled this item, but then I explained the item further so I could tell. And what I would like to just close my part, Marcus did provide me the document of the previous Quincy contract, and I didn't have a lot of time to read it, but I did go over it, and I can't see, because I was looking for double dipping, and I don't like that, and I didn't find none. This is a new evaluation for a new end-up purpose, and so I'm ready to move the item.
I'll second. So further discussion. Roger,
Roger, you
any
can-
additional questions?
Again, if the residents hadn't brought this up for that meeting would never happen, and this would be another agenda item on a consent calendar that would have just passed. So my issue is that we have a utility commission for a reason. We have council for a reason on specific items that are hot topic items especially, and it shouldn't have to come from residents to ping a council member to set up a meeting the same day as the agenda. So I'm just looking for a little more insight is all, that's
Well,
all.
my only, I don't want to point counterpoint, but to tell you the truth, without the people out in the city telling me what the hell's going on, I'd be a very ineffective councilman.
I'm not saying it's
Okay,
not a
but
good
so
thing. I'm
there's
saying it
nothing
shouldn't
wrong with
have
them
to be
telling
that.
us and using this process.
So why don't we do this, so just, again, so people don't feel like, we'll change the process a little because of sensitivity of nature, and I understand where you're coming from. So how about this? Next time it comes back, put it under new business. So that way it's not on consent, so nobody has to kind of quote pull it, if you will. Everybody knows it's coming. And in the interim, if there's any steps in between, we can just do under scheduled presentation updates if we have to.
You know,
can do that, Mayor
this isn't the first time this has happened. I mean, you know, this is government at work. We agendize a meeting, and people look at the items, and if they have concerns and questions, there's not a meeting that goes by where people don't have concerns and questions. This has the attention of a lot of folks that deeply care about, you know, how this is gonna end up. But I am certain, based on the discussion this evening, that our Environmental and Water Resources Director and our city manager have heard loud and clear some of the concerns, and I'm very comfortable going forward.
I gotta say, Marcus didn't miss a beat from our approval. So despite what rumor mill was floating out there, and I'm not even trying to dress and point fingers, that's irrelevant. But the bottom line is, when Marcus presented not only this evening and explained the staff report of what phase we're in, he was absolutely dead on from the approval of the city council. He was dead on in his commitment to what he told the residents, told us, and what we gave out as a policy. So I gotta say, Marcus, keep moving forward, because you haven't missed one beat of what we demanded when we gave you that direction. And you've taken it and actually done a very good job. I like the fact that you're looking at other alternatives. I shared with Marcus earlier, I said, we're looking at this this construction thing or this spider quality thing. Maybe there's a third one out there we don't know about. And he says, yeah, they're looking into all the alternatives to be the least harmful for that preserve. It's like I was sharing with the vice mayor, you put our 2 years together, we have over 50 years between the two of us of protecting Hinkle Creek with all different positions we've held throughout the city. A lot of you folks remember the little trail that was supposed to be cut back with the DG and they opened up for the whole public to go through? Remember who killed that thing? We did. So, in this council. So, my point being is, Marcus got our message, got your message, and he has not missed one beat on the direction. So I want to applaud you for doing that. I like the fact you're thinking a little differently. I appreciate the residents for thinking a little differently, because, again, we created a solution when we gave all you guys the approvals and commitments. No one has wavered from the commitments, not this council, not that director, that city attorney, and now with this manager. So I'm very comfortable. When I was talking about bringing it back, that's why you're probably looking at it, needs to come back. If it comes back, it has to be under old business, not new, because it's just, again, and I don't want to share with everybody, and that's why I said, as we move along, maybe a scheduled presentation, update, however you want to call it, would be appropriate, so everybody knows, kind of like we get with other items, especially on something that's sensitive and big like that. To Roger's point, that'd probably be very helpful, not only with us, but UC. I know you gave it to the UC, they just didn't realize there was an ask for some money this evening, but that's okay, that's just a process thing you guys can work out. But this is phase 2 of at least 3 or 4 phases before anything gets done out there, and I'm perfectly comfortable where we're at. So I want to say thank you for your work and your team, and
Thank you.
and all the people still working. Thank you for the residents for staying involved, because we are watching, we are listening, and that's why we're having this discussion this evening. So we do have a motion from the vice mayor. I second it. If there's any further discussion, Roger, anything further? We meet everything you're looking for? Are you okay with what we're looking for? Bring it back as like workshops and stuff like that as we move along? Okay. Andy, you have anything?
All good?
Okay, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Moran?
Yes.
Sheldon?
Yes.
Gaylord?
Yes.
And Miklos?
Yes. Okay,
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Marcus. Okay, and item L was pulled, and if the clerk would read that item.
That's me.
Okay, item L is resolution number 10163, a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a subdivision improvement agreement and accept offers of dedication for the Islands Phase 2B subdivision and approval of the final map for the Islands Phase 2B subdivision.
Okay, my thing, I want Robert to come up because he's had too easy a life on vacations of that. The reason I pulled this, I just want a clarification where we stand on the ring park, which was very controversial in my mind when we started. Now they're almost done. How does that look in your professional evaluation?
Given the approval, authorization, and design of the ring park, I'm quite satisfied. I've seen the first phase completion in person, and it's done, and it's beautiful. It's a very well landscaped linear parkway, circumnavigating half of the island's project. The other half is under construction and is very close to being complete, and we expect acceptance by our department approximately September 1st.
Mr. Mayor, that satisfies my concern. I moved the motion. I moved the item.
Okay, you've got a motion item. Do we have a
And
second?
and I'll second it, and I'm just going to make the comment that I've made before on these items on, excuse me, on final maps as well. I read through each and every condition that needs to be met before the fees are paid and building permits are issued have in fact been met.
Okay, any further discussion on the item? Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Howell?
Yes.
Moran?
Yes.
Sheldon?
Yes.
Gaylord?
Yes.
And Miklos?
Yes. Okay, the next item is,
Your next item is item 7A. This is the 2035 general plan approval. You have two resolutions as part of that item. Resolution number 10147, a resolution approving the 2035 general plan environmental impact report, findings of fact, and statement of overriding considerations, along with resolution number 10148, a resolution approving the 2035 general plan.
good evening, Pam.
Good evening, Mayor Miklos, members of the City Council, Pam Johns, Community Development Director. I just have a brief reminder of where we're at, and then I'm happy to open up to questions. The general plan update is a continued item from your June 26th meeting. We have been 6 years in the making on this project. The first three phases had some starts and stops, but starting in January of 2017, we had a draft general plan that's been considered and analyzed and is now before you for action. This is just a brief slide covering about a dozen meetings that have occurred since that January period. Including 5 meetings with the City Council that are highlighted herein. At those meetings, some of them one was just a kind of a presentation or status, but the vast majority were opportunities for the council to provide input and direction. We took public testimony at those meetings, and direction was then incorporated into the document per that direction. We've received 253 comments on the initial draft. Those have been part of your records. And let's see if I can do this with the highlighter here. 253 comments that explain what action was taken, how those comments were addressed. And then after the environmental review was completed, we received 9 written comments from members of the public and interested organizations, and we have provided, as required, written responses to all of those comments, and that's in the final EIR document. And this is what that looks like. It's Chapter 3 of Attachment 6 in your report. In addition, you've received some written correspondence and heard public testimony at the meetings. In addition to that, and we've provided you with one additional comment this evening, we received after the distribution of your packet. At the last City Council meeting on June 26, we heard several comments from the City Council. The top 3, which are detailed in your staff report, staff is not recommending any change unless the council directs it. We provided, an explanation for those items or would require direction of the City Council. For the bottom 3 items, there were good requests for clarification, and we're recommending that you direct us to incorporate those changes. We've provided the specific edits in the staff report. So staff and the Planning Commission, by a vote of 4-3, recommend the City Council certify the EIR and all of the corresponding documents and adopt the 2035 general plan. With me this evening are the staff that have been involved in the project throughout the process and our consultant team to answer any questions that you may have.
Pam, I have a question. So when the Planning Commission gave the recommendation to the City Council, I believe it was a 4-2 with 1 absent. Mr.
we
Rawls,
went
Commissioner
back
Rawls was
and-
not at the meeting.
We actually went back and looked at that record, and he was at the meeting. It was a 4-3 vote. There was the previous meeting where they looked at the environmental review that he was
Okay.
not part of. So
That's
it
the
went
one.
to them on 2 occasions, and at one meeting,
Okay,
he
so-
was not in attendance. At the other, he was.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Yep, absolutely.
Any questions, Pam?
I don't, just thanks for incorporating my comments and explaining the other ones. Still not happy about being called the gateway to the Foothill wine region, but There you go.
Thank you.
Okay, I do have two requests to speak on the items, so unless the council members want to say something first, I'll bring those two folks up.
After,
Do you have any other people, Pam, that you want to present?
Nope.
Mr. Mayor, if I could ask that you officially reopen the public hearing,
Yeah.
since
so
it was
that-
closed at the
and
last
actu-
meeting?
And well, here's the question I have. Well, okay, because we agendized as old business, not under public hearing, but I was going to do that anyways, but, so for clarification purposes, because it was originally a public hearing, I have to reopen it
Correct.
in that direction?
Because it was
Okay.
closed at the last meeting.
Okay,
Yes,
so
sir.
this officially reopens the public hearing on this item. Anybody wishing to come forward, please fill out your blue cards. We do have two requests. So if the clerk, please call the one. Again, you have 3 minutes on this item.
Our first speaker will be Mike Barnbaum. Mike will be followed by Terry Sorensen.
And we will be holding you to 3 minutes. And if you don't want to come up to speak this evening, you're certainly welcome to submit any comments in letter or written form through Pam's office. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Thank you. So I was in attendance at the last city council meeting of this item coming up, which was the first meeting since the inception of the night service on the Gold Line to Folsom. If you were here, maybe watch the replay or are in the audience and were at that meeting, you'd probably agree with me. There were some pretty disturbing conversations going on when the item came up. And I'm glad that the item came back when 100% of the attendance of the council is here. So here's where I'm going with this. This is going to kind of bring back protocol and procedure between advisory committees, in this case, the Planning Commission, but it could be any advisory committee, and a governing body. In that case in point here, the Folsom City Council. My message to the Planning Commission is that if you think you can unilaterally approve an item and make it policy, that's nothing but a heartache, and that's nothing but a mistake. So my Backstreet Boys message to the Planning Commission is, I don't want to hear you say, I want it that way. That is an item that is recommendation only, and the proper procedure and protocol is to forward that recommendation, in the case in point here, to the Folsom City Council. And that is a procedure I fully support, that it go from an advisory committee to the governing body. So my message in following that protocol and procedure to what I mentioned and iterated earlier again is, if it goes from the recommended advisory committee to the council, yes, I want it that way. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, call the next person, please.
Next speaker will be Terry Sorensen.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I promise I won't sing. Some short comments. I previously submitted written submissions to you guys on June 4, June 22, July 10, and I guess I was a little bit late on my July 18. I thought I got over Wednesday or Thursday, but didn't make it in the council packet. So I don't know if you had a chance to look at that one or not.
The one I have that you submitted was dated today, July 24.
Did I say that? No, it's June,
No,
maybe I did. It's
the
July.
cover, the
Oh, the
cover
cover's from
letter
staff.
says 24th, the letter says July 18th.
Okay,
Yeah.
So no, I have not, because it was presented tonight. Came in late.
All right, it's some further opposition, probably because no surprise. It's based on a lawsuit that I cite in here. It's called Concerned Citizens of Calaveras County versus Board of Supervisors on a nearly identical fact situation. We can argue about how close it is to being identical, but the Court of Appeals said, you know, you can't do that because the circulation element doesn't match up with doesn't match up with the land use element in regard to in this case, a county had projected that there'd be a certain amount of growth, and then in the same plan, in the circulation element, they said, okay, so that amount of growth, we're gonna need this much, these roadway improvements. We don't have any money to do that. But it said, we'll find it, we'll go to someplace else and see if we can dig it up. And the court said that's an abracadabra resolution. You can't do that. The elements have to be, I can't remember the term, I think it's correlated. And they said, we don't find that to be the case here. Those elements of the plan have to be redone. And I think the same situation exists here in regard to the admitted growth that's going to take place in the city, the traffic conditions that are predicted to exist, that the general plan says we want, D, maybe sometimes E, but as it stands right now, unless certain things fall through which are not in place, it's going to be enough. And under this case that I just cited, you can't do that.
Mr. Sorensen, are you referring to traffic levels of service F on Highway 50?
Yes.
Just clarification.
Okay. That's that point. It's in writing. It's there if you want to take a look at it. Just in closing, I'm doing this for Deborah. She's out of town. We usually tag team, so this is Deborah Grassel's, what she wanted to bring out. Okay, in closing, I have one further statement to make. It appears to me that there are many crucial issues relating to the proposed general plan and related EIR that deserve further investigation and analysis before council action on the plan can proceed. We need well-publicized public hearings, one session for each element of the general plan to allow for full and complete public input and involvement. As it now stands, there are just too many large issues relating to the plan and the related EIR that have been touched on in only a superficial manner or not at all. The seriousness of the undertaking at hand for the future of the city requires an equally serious analysis and vetting of the general plan.
Okay, thank you.
I will conclude on that. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Terry. I'll let you go over because I knew you were speaking for Deborah too.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
You're very welcome. Mr. Vice Mayor?
Well, you know, I just want to make a comment. I was here and I was active in the Park Commission in 1985, 86, 87, when we did the general plan of 88. Maybe Bob Holdness can have a better memory than me, but I don't remember that we had the money to build 2 bridges over the river that we built. So sometimes as a body, you know what you need, and you go out and get it done. And that's exactly what this council over those years, and the councils that were here before, between 88 and today, they went out and found that money, and they built those bridges. Nobody else in this area has done that. So I think maybe he sort of implied that it's a fairyland. And as you know how the building industry works, we have impact fees and we collect them. But nowhere that I know that they pay up front in order to just go out and build these overpasses. We know what we need to do. And our challenge on this council and the future councils of the years is to get it done. And as it gets done, it should mitigate. But I just can't believe anybody. And I looked at briefly at your recommendation of all the things that we said we were going to do to mitigate things with the South Area expansion. But why would you ever think anybody, any agency could have that sitting in the bank to do that at the time to mitigate it? It doesn't make realistic sense, okay? So I'm just, that's just my 2 bits into this now. I do have some other concerns I'll talk about later, but that just struck me as pretty hard.
Okay, so we still have the public hearing open, so if there's anybody else who would like to come down and speak on this item, please do so. I do not have any written requests. Okay, I don't see any further, so I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. And so you asked for the floor after we close it.
Should be tired of me talking by now.
We are.
But that doesn't stop me from talking. In one respect, Mr. Sorensen, I agree with you. The general plan was 529 pages, and I spent the whole weekend in my home reading that general plan. The EIR to support that general plan is twice the size, and I did not get through that. And it's not because I'm not doing it. Now, I could very easy, based on the professionalism of the people that prepared it, and I looked at their backgrounds, and I looked at not only, we have 3 that come out here all the time, seems like, but they're surrounded by a lot of professional people that help them do it. And we have a very qualified director here on how to do a general plan. So I feel we're progressing and have the highest level of this plan. But my position as a councilman elected by the city to do the best I can in the time I have, I'm not going to vote on this plan right now because I have not read the complete EIR to balance it to the thing. It's not because I'm delinquent in providing time, but there's only so many days you can read 1,500 pages of packages, and read them and understand them. Now, I enjoyed having a meeting yesterday with the director of planning and the city manager on some of the items that I had concern with that I could identify, and they were very good in clarifying for me. Because as an elected official, I am not going to vote for something I don't feel that I provided the complete amount of time that I need to fulfill my obligation to the people that voted me to this job. And I haven't been able to do that, not because I'm delinquent, not because I'm a bad manager, but there's just so much you can do in a minimum amount of time and still survive in this world. So I am going to request a drop-dead date of August 28th to bring this back for a vote up or down of this, and hopefully there's not a lot of changes between then. You give me another 1,500-page package. But I think, and I think it's only, now maybe you all found some kind of magic and you read it all, but I doubt that sincerely. And I don't think it's going to delay anything. We will have this, or we'll have the vote of this on the current council, which I think is adequate. We've been looking at this for 6 years. Been talking about planning, and seeing meetings and all that. I think a few more months or weeks to be sure we are individually ready to express our feelings on yes or no at this point, because this is 2035 is what we're talking about. If I'm here, it's going to be amazing. But it's not what you do when you're here, it's what you do, what's done after you're gone and you made sure that it was the right thing to do. So I'm formally requesting that
Let's move to continue to August 28th.
that we moved, make a motion to move and continue to August 28th for the actual voting up and down. And I want to clarify, I'm not moving this to delay it and kill it. Internally, emotions tell me, go ahead and vote and get it out of your hair. But then pride of integrity says, no, that's not doing it. You're just taking a shortcut. You need to satisfy yourself that you're providing the best evaluation of the project that the people worked 6 hard years doing. Planning department worked 6 hard years putting it together. They deserve that I read every single page and every paragraph. And then if I don't know it, I come and ask them again, which I plan to do in the next 6 weeks, if the continuation is approved by the council. But that's just, I just feel that way. This is a big deal. It was a big deal in '88, but I was pretty new. And all I had to do was work on the element of the park. And that held up pretty well over the 30 years that it was in effect. So I'm sure the element of the parks now will go for the next 30 years, and I had nothing to do with that. So I would request the continuation of this item until August 28th with a deadline, or a caveat in my mind anyway, whether it's legal or not, that we don't continue it beyond that date, unless it's something legal comes up that we have to.
Okay, so we got a motion on the table to move it to August 28th.
I'll second that, but I don't think there should be a deadline after. I think it should be open to
Well,
consideration.
we can't make a deadline, but the point he was making was he'll be prepared on August 28th, and so if the consensus of the council is to make an action, then you're absolutely correct, but we can't make a
Yeah,
motion.
I'm comfortable with that. I mean, when there's a, you know, a sincere request from a council member to, for additional time to review something of this magnitude, you know, I think it'd be poor form to, you know, plow through that and, you know, to reconsider this. I apologize for missing the last meeting in June that covered a lot of this stuff, but with that in mind, you know, I think the best thing for me to do is to, you know, I'll save my kind of final comments and thoughts on this document for the August 28th meeting, and exactly, we'll take this up again August 28th and see where everybody's comfort level is then, but.
Okay, so Carrie or Roger, do you want to see any comments
Yeah.
this evening?
The last thing I had is I didn't see anything on consideration of level of service, and I guess maybe I'm doing it wrong. I'd like to formally suggest that we don't decrease from C to D, and within policy M 4.1.3, I'd like to raise those to one grade level each. So from D to C and from F, or so from E to D. So if you look at, I think it's page 17-49.
So we'll need analysis of what that could mean to a project and specifically,
I
since we
think
can't-
if we were going to, you're talking about the level of service
Correct.
areas. If we were to change that level of service, it would require us to redo the environmental analysis for the general plan project. So if we have direction from the majority of council to look at something like that, I think, you know, we can get back to you with an understanding of the cost of and time issues associated with redoing that analysis. But what it would mean is bigger roadways, you know, throughout the city at a minimum. You know, we'd have to quantify what that would mean. It would be significant.
So what I'm hearing.
And I have a comment too on that same subject.
So you're saying anything that's level D, you want to go to C, which in order to do that, like she says, create larger roadways, which this community has made extremely clear that they don't want. And when you look at the difference in the level C and D, you're talking 15 seconds.
We're currently operating, our standard right now is C, and we're operating at F in some intersections.
Not all the time.
Good majority of intersections, and I
So
understand
let's-
what level of service is, and I get it, the little Wikipedia thing you put on our desk, I understand it.
Well, but I just want to clarify that particular point. It's not just a little Wikipedia thing. This is a compilation that was printed by Wikipedia, but is based on 6 or 7 transportation and traffic engineering and federal FHWA and NCHRP documents. So it's not just somebody sitting at a keyboard at Wikipedia. This comes from technical documents, and I thought it would be helpful to the council members. I did make one extra copy. If anybody in the audience would like one, or call me or email me, and I'll be happy to forward it to you. But it's a very good explanation of what the levels of service mean.
So what,
I'm concerned, and, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead, finish your thought.
I know, I jumped in before you, go for it.
Well, I hear what you're saying, but here's a general fact. I've been bringing it up for quite some time, better part of 12, almost 12 years now from SACOG. The study that was initiated by SACOG, which established routes, roadways, capacity, air quality, goods and movement, all that stuff, said, I think we finished it 10 years ago. Between then and 2035, we're going to have 2.5 million more people here. We only have so much land to accommodate them. And at the same token, we also have only so much capacity that the community we serve says we can build. They don't want 6-lane highways. They want slower slower lanes, if you will. They want bike lanes, they want walkable sideways. That's where complete streets came out and being pushed really hard by federal highways. In fact, if we don't comply to some of those complete street type guidelines, we lose out on grants. And I mean, that's just kind of general background, if you will. But really the biggest key, however, is the width of the streets and the speeds have been made clear in this city. And we've looked at, I'll give you a perfect example. Natoma Station Drive was 4 lanes and we had horrendous accident history there. So we compressed it to 2 lanes with bike lanes and wider sidewalks because that's what the community demanded. So I don't disagree with you that there's going to be a lot more traffic here. These people are coming.
So why are
There's
we
only
going
so
to
much
diminish
capacity.
the level of service down, though, if they're coming? So there's other options as
Well,
opposed to
bec-
widening
here's-
streets.
Because the fact is, the community that we serve has told us they don't want 6-lane highways everywhere. And so in order to save maybe 20 seconds at an intersection, at least one member up here, I'm not willing to build, instead of 4 lanes, 6 lanes to save 20 seconds at an intersection for maybe a 3-hour, worst case 4-hour period sporadically throughout the day. Because remember, level of service is measured in time periods of the worst. It's not an all-day long occurrence. So I hear what you're saying. The reality is you just don't have the capacity back up. You could build a capacity, but then you're going against the community that says we don't want it, because we face it all along.
Everyone I've spoken to does not want me to vote on something that's going to decrease the level of service.
Well, I don't know who
So-
you're talking to, because the people we talk to and have been serving and been building this city and planning this thing are basically saying the opposite. That's how this.
They're
is
saying
created.
reduce it?
They're willing to say, I'll sit at an intersection for another 15 minutes, an hour and a half in the commute, and an hour and a half in the afternoon, because I don't want 6-lane highways. And in fact, there's still, for the people that actually followed this, if you remember, before they took redevelopment money away, one of the target areas, and Carrie and I were the council members in that committee that looked at the East Bidwell corridor, specifically the older part of East Bidwell. And what we heard from the residents there was, don't expand the streets, create some bike lanes, create some medians. In other words, they wanted things to slow down, make it safer, make it more attractive for business. So they're willing, and it has been demonstrated, they're willing to put up with another 15, 20 seconds at a red light a few times a day during commute times or school let out. Everybody adjust accordingly versus massive wide streets. So, I mean, we already have a speeding issue in the city already. Studies will show that will actually increase speeds. So I hear what you're saying. It's just, it's a fine balance between how long are we willing to wait at a red light during commute times? How can we plan the infrastructure improvements like what we're doing with Iron Point and East Bidwell, and certainly coming around in and out eventually to re-loop back around to the freeway to eliminate that big old bottleneck. But there's only so much capacity you can build. But at the end of the day, we're building what the community has demanded for years that we build, in this case, not build, but create what they want, which is 4 lanes max, bike lanes, wide sidewalks, nice medians, protection, if you will. And in some cases, like we did in Toma Station, there's a couple others I don't remember off the top of my head, we actually shrunk the streets down from 4 to 2 based on that stuff. So I hear what you're saying, but it's that fine balance. I mean, I understand what you're saying, if
There's a lot
you're
of
okay with
options,
that, but. yeah,
I'd like to suggest that we get our traffic consultant and our transportation engineer just to give a little more information to the council about this topic so we understand what's up for consideration. And I think, Councilmember Sheldon asked the question, what will change between now and the next time, August 28th? Absolutely nothing unless this council directs it, right? So unless you have majority agreement directing us to do something, nothing would change on the project between now and when it comes back to you. Any consideration for change, we need to be able to tell you if that's going to impact the environmental analysis, right? Because we have to make sure that the document that serves that plan is going to be sufficient, right? So great consideration. Let's get the traffic consultants up to the microphone to talk a little bit more.
With all due respect, before we do that, I want to hear the consensus of the council, because a lot of us already understand what we're talking about here. A lot of us have been here a long time, including my colleague over here is now 10 years, because we've been working on this for 6 years. We've had a more than detailed briefing and understanding education on level of service and the impact. So if my colleagues up here say, that's not, me for one, I don't want to change the level of service in the document.
Can I tell you what my ask is?
Sure.
I'm asking for us not to change the level of service in the document, in the original one. So right now, it's set in Cs and Ds. I want to leave it at that.
Okay,
I
maybe
don't
I
want to
misunderstood
decrease
your
it.
question. I apologize.
So in policy, and correct me if I'm wrong, but in policy 4.1.3, we're basically, in the 2035 general plan, we're considering reducing the level of service level from C, D, and C, Highway 50C, and some of those intersections on the other side, and the new intersections coming up, into Ds and Fs and Es.
I'm sorry, I don't have it open to that page. Does that say during peak hour? You don't need to show it to me. Does it say during peak hour?
Well, it's a whole page, so there's several, let's see, hold on.
Pam and Mark, I'm thinking that, that by definition, this is going to be a peak hour number, so it's during the peak hour.
So it says the capacity of the city's arterial system is controlled by the capacities of the signalized intersections that, sorry. Thus focus on the. go
I
ahead.
put a couple of slides in here based on the topics that we've heard issues on. So that policy that's been discussed at a few previous items is listed right here for you, along with just a simple infographic that I grabbed off of the internet, which is a way to show what the difference in delay is. These numbers are not different than the information that Councilmember Howell provided.
Thanks, Pam, but I
you.
think at the bottom of that, it says during peak hours. That, I want everybody to understand that peak hour means the peak hour in the morning when we have the highest traffic volumes, and the peak hour in the afternoon.
Right.
It
So
doesn't
this
say
is
peak
the policy that Councilmember Gaylord is referencing.
Okay.
And it doesn't say peak hours.
Yes, it does. Level of service E may also be accepted during peak commute periods at major intersections within 1/4 mile of a freeway interchange or river crossing.
Sorry, I was looking at the one above that. So that one does say that, but, so the specific plan, if we jump over to that, which I don't think you have that on there, but we've already considered, I don't have it with me, but Es, Fs, the new intersections coming online will already be operating at Fs. So currently, our standards are Cs and Ds, which we are not hitting, correct?
Yeah, and I'm going to ask Mark Rackvan to come up and talk about that.
And
What our
while Mark's
existing
coming
levels
up,
of service are.
just for the purposes of the general public, when we're looking at signalized intersections, level of service A, and this does not include the fact that you may or may not have to stop at a light, that doesn't count in the delay. The delay at a signalized intersection for level of service A is less than 10 seconds, level of service B, and there's ranges. So the average is 15 seconds, level of service C is 30 seconds, level of service D is 45 seconds, level of service E is 65 seconds, and level of service F is greater than 80 seconds. So these are all 1/4 of a minute, half a minute, 3/4 of a minute, and slightly more than a minute.
Per car,
And-
right?
Pardon?
Per car.
Yes, it's per car. That means if you're in a car, and I'm in a car, and Mark's in the car behind me, we're all going to wait at level of service C. We may have a delay of up to 30 seconds, or 45 seconds, or 65 seconds.
Sir.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Mark Rackvan, your engineering manager. I believe that the policy that was adopted regarding level service for the Folsom specific plan was strictly level service D. I don't recall, I don't have it in front of me, but I don't recall that there were any other exceptions in that policy for the intersections in the Folsom plan area. This document is a enhancement of that policy to broaden it to encompass the entire city, and yes, to reflect a little more flexibility when it comes to peak hour traffic near our freeway intersections and near our river crossings.
Yeah, and I think one important note to put out there is when people reference level of service on Highway 50, that's not necessarily in our control. In fact, I would argue it's very little into our control because we don't control the development to the east specifically, nor do we control it to the west, and which way, and now we have both commutes. It's not just a one-way, it's a reverse commute plus a direct commute.
And to add to that, Steve, I think it's important to note that that is why the city of Folsom has worked so hard for so long on getting the rest of the Southeast Connector built. Most of the areas that touch the city of Folsom are already 4 lanes, but it doesn't help if the El Dorado County can't get it expanded to 4 lanes on their side and the rest of it all the way to out to Elk Grove, because that will remove a significant amount of traffic from Highway 50 and Highway 99 and I-5.
So what I want to do is I want to reach back to, because maybe again, I misunderstand the ask, because again, I want to hear what Roger has to say, and so if I understand the ask, it might be just more of a policy statement than a change, because I'm not interested at all in redoing an EIR, because I think we spent 6 years on determining where we're at, and I think you just validated some of the concerns that we had when we did the Folsom plan area over the last 15 years plus. So again, I'm misunderstanding the ask, Roger.
I don't have the specific plan with me, but I'm almost positive that there's a section in there that is referencing D and F, but it's also referencing future planning for, future planning for those, not the Highway 50 intersections, but the intersections around Highway 50 to be operating at a confirmed level F when they're built in the future. So we're already expecting those to operate under what our standards are. My ask is that we don't lower the standard. We move forward with the current standard that we have, which are C's and D's, because if you, out of the actual, and I wish I had it with me, but out of the intersection operation currently, many of them are already under that. So they're not even operating at that. And I don't know, I mean, I'm not, like, I don't have the, you know, the
we got another
history
month.
here as you did, but I don't necessarily think it's just, we have to say, oh, it's going to be 7 lanes or 8 lanes. I mean, there's a ton of different improvements we can do, infrastructure, lighting, analytics, different things that we can put within our city to do to control traffic outside of increasing the lanes. But I also have a theory. I think some of the unsafe speeds and red light running we have is attributed to the traffic we have due to the intersection issues we have right now. Lately, I mean, you guys probably get the same emails, but it just seems like it's getting worse, worse, and worse, and I think folks are getting impatient. I don't want to, I think this, so far, the 2035 general plan, kudos out to the consultants, kudos out to city staff, everyone who's had a touch on this, everyone who's been here for 6 years doing it. I think it's a great document. My issue with it, I have 2 issues. 1, level of service, I don't want to change it. 2, I'm not sure I want to actually submit this for approval prior to the election coming, because we have 2 confirmed folks not rerunning. So we have a whole new council coming that, this is a guiding plan for till 2035. It kind of scares me to have this like laid down and solidified prior to new folks coming on this board, because me being new, you know, I'm only, you know, 19 months in, there's a lot of stuff to catch up on and all this stuff, and if we just submit it and approve it, I know that's standard operating procedure for you know, business, and we always have election cycles, but that's an issue too. But
Well, I got to jump in on that one, because that one, to me, you know, again, it's not any disrespect intended. You have a council that has looked at it up here 6 years, and you've been 1 year and 3/4. So, you know, we've had a lot of years, a lot of people, and so on and so forth. So based on what you just said, if we bring a new council in, they're not going to have any clue before another election cycle comes up, and then another cycle comes up. So we're going to keep churning over people that don't have enough time, because maybe that council comes in, they're in their 4th year, 3rd year, whatever, we're gonna have a new election. So to me, you have the community, you've had the consultants, you've had 4 out of 5 of us for 6 years, you almost 2, that have looked at this, and to me, this is the body that makes the decision, because we have the most experience in the education, in the 6 years of very detailed information that's been put in front of us. I think it's up to 5 of us up here to make this decision, not bring in another council that you then have to educate everything, re-educate everything, re-notice everything, and do over and over, and then where we say is enough is enough.
I mentioned it, it's not a sticking point. The sticking point is level of service, so I'll
Oh,
drop
I
that
understand,
other part.
I was
but-
just addressing I think this council is the one that needs to make the decision, because this community expects us to, because we've brought to this point with 4 of us for the first 4 years, the 5 of us now for the last 1 and 3/4, almost 2 years. This is the body that needs to make the decision. That's my opinion. So I hear what you're saying, so maybe we could just look at a policy statement that would say, I know what the document says, I know what the EIR say, but maybe, as I'm hearing from him, the ask could be, our policy statement is to not decrease level of service wherever possible. Something like that? Is that what you're referring to, Roger?
Roger, I think you're referring to the existing 1988 general plan service levels. So right now, the city's service levels don't operate at that level. So we would be adopting a plan that doesn't truly reflect the existing condition on the ground, regardless of what happens in the future.
We'll be
So
adopting a plan that doesn't operate regardless. So we're going to lower the standards, but we're still going to be under those standards. So we're not going to operate at it no matter what. So if that's the case, we should just make it F and G.
But I think what we target for the improvements to intersections and roadways at this new level of service target make sure that we don't have to build three turn lanes and 2 right turn lanes, right? So you would have to oversize existing intersections and roadways in order to target or meet that, that lower level of service. That's the difference.
I don't disagree
right?
with you. I think there's other methods to do it. So I'm saying I want to give you a level to hit, and we're not going to hit the level. We're already not hitting the level.
Roger, do you have any specific recommendations for how to go about doing that don't include the recommendations that we're hearing from?
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to set a meeting with you and Mark Rackavan.
No, I'd like you to tell, I'd like to hear it. I'm an engineer. I know how to do these things,
it's
and I'd
in
like
the-
to hear
Well,
it.
you have an
Rod,
obligation to
it's
try
in
and
the-
prove me wrong, so I'm just
No,
telling
I
you what
don't, Roger.
think.
I'd like to hear what your idea is.
My idea, I mean, it's not, I'm not going to spiel it out right here. I mean, my point is that there's several improvements we can make, which obviously cost money, but with a, you put me on the spot here, but an integrated lighting system with analytics. I mean, there's several different improvements that we can do.
Roger, page M8 has what you're looking at. It's right here in the document. So yeah, so that gets to your point as
Okay,
far
thank you.
as those technologies are listed right there.
Yeah, they're already part of the plan and approach to do everything possible, right? To reduce vehicle traffic, to provide alternative modes, to synchronize signals. Those things are listed in the policy document and are all part of our plan and approach per this council's direction.
So Mark, the reason I asked Mark to come back, the reason I asked Mark to come back up, I know we've been, and I don't remember where we're at, have been successful or unsuccessful. I know ITS has been, Intelligent Transportation System integration and installation without the city has been on the books for a better part of 10 years or so. Can you give us an update where we might be at with that? Because I know it's very expensive. We put in for a gazillion grants. Can you give us an update where we're at with that?
Yes, sir.
That leads to one of Roger's points, and it's a very good point.
Yeah, we do have intelligent transportation system master plan for the city of Folsom that does incorporate the elements that Councilmember Gaylord is referring to: synchronized traffic signals, adaptive controls, flow monitors, traffic cameras with a monitoring center where we can implement plans as situations develop. That's the overall plan. Where we stand today, we do have coordination of our signals along East Bidwell Street, Blue Ravine Road, Folsom Boulevard. Folsom Boulevard, unfortunately, gets disrupted regularly by the light rail preemption, so it probably doesn't seem like it's coordinated, but the infrastructure is there. We have about a dozen traffic cameras around town at key intersections that feed back to a traffic operations center that we have down at the Corporation Yard. We recently hired an associate engineer with a robust traffic operations background, and he will be overseeing the further development of our ITS network. What we've been doing in recent years is just putting in the backbone, the fiber optic trunk lines going through all of our arterials, feeding it back to our traffic operations center. And that is a heavy lift. It's a lot of infrastructure to put in the ground, but it's necessary to have the single mode fiber linking all of our signals.
Mark, is that being done as streets are being repaved?
It's being done somewhat independent of the repaving because most of the fiber is off behind the back of walk.
So do we have existing conduits in place to put it there?
Where we have existing conduit, we use them more often than not because of the size of the fiber and the splice faults that have to carry it around. It's independent of any of the conduits, the old copper wire conduits that we have in the ground. The Folsom Plan area has, as part of their backbone infrastructure, they are required to put all of this in. All the backbone fiber optics and splice faults, tie it into our existing network, and then as the signals come online down there, they will have the cameras and the count stations and whatnot. So we're moving very slowly, but we're moving. We're getting the heavy lifts out of the way. Once we get the fiber optic network in place, then it is a matter of just incorporating the software for the analytics, having the count stations and the cameras to feed the data back to the software. So we're very close, and certainly we're participating regionally through SACOG. SACOG has a regional ITS master plan that we're participating in. Caltrans has a Highway 50 integrated corridor management plan that we're a part of. I think there was a presentation here to the council just a couple of months ago that Caltrans briefed you all on that. So
Mark,
yes.
do you have an
it is
estimate for ballpark cost north of the freeway per four-way signalized intersection? What is the cost to upgrade to the technology that you're talking about?
At an existing traffic signal?
Yep.
Well, you're talking about putting in cameras, communications equipment, and then the fiber optic backbone. On a per intersection basis, it's not that expensive. We're probably looking at, maybe about $10,000, $15,000 if you aggregate it, or if you break it down per intersection. So for example.
In some cases, does that require replacement of the existing equipment that's already there?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so
Well, it depends on what you go with. Some of the cameras have built-in analytics, and as long as you supply the VMS or the software, I mean, that's it. The fiber backbone is the cost.
So the reason I asked Mark to come on that, and I'll look at you two, long after I'm gone, that expenditure position, if you will, or that commitment, is going to fall on you guys to take the lead to do exactly what you said, because we've been working on it a while, because, we inherited a city that didn't have it. We're now inheriting technology that can do everything you're talking about. So we have to play catch up for this side of the city, but we were smart enough to make a requirement for the other side of the freeway. So that's where I'm coming from. So I agree with you as far as it's in there to that's our goal. So now we just have to play catch up to get there, and that's where you guys have to lead the charge from budgets from here on out to get there,
Well,
and/or grants and
I'm
stuff.
going to start with that by suggesting we don't lower the level of service. So I don't know what that change means, but I'd like to learn more about it. If that's, and I've said this the last, I think, 3 general plan meetings, that was a concern of mine, and I didn't see it up there. I don't know if it's supposed to be something I need to formally submit in writing, or.
Well, why don't you, and I'm going to suggest that you make a time with the city manager, and she can pull in all the people that you need to do and start bringing up some of the ideas and stuff that you have, because we're going to see this again on the 28th, sounds like.
Yeah, but-
And then between then and 28th, we can have a further, more detailed discussion on 28th, and then information can be provided to us as a whole based on some of your discussions. If the manager within the attorney's office says, hey, here's a white paper on these items you guys discussed on, July 24th or whatever, and here's the follow-up to that for your August 28th meeting.
I'd be happy to do that.
Can I say something? I can't believe what I'm hearing, but I am hearing it. When I was Roger's age, my motto used to be live fast, die young, and have a good-looking corpse. Okay, that was my motto. And I read Facebook occasionally, and I think a lot of people live the same way. Now, today I'm, slow down, stretch it out, and who cares what you look at the end. So I was here when the discussion was put out to take away the median on Folsom Boulevard and make more lanes. And right now we say it's a racetrack. Can you imagine what it would have been had we actually done that? If you make the level of service down to the end, what's the motivation for this council, any other council, to try to figure out how to improve that? Just because you have that, it's better to say, hey, you're going to have to sit down and wait a while, rather than, last night, I just by chance, I don't look at Facebook often, but last night I did, and there was an argument about traffic, how to pass on the highways. And they're talking, why can't I pass at 70, 80, 90 miles an hour? You're in my way. The speed limit is 70, and I'm in the fast lane, and I'm doing 70, but I'm wrong because I should get the hell out of the way because the guy behind me wants to go 90. Aren't we a city and a nation of laws? Have we forgotten everything? Slow down. I mean, I'd rather sit at an intersection for 30 seconds longer and be sure I can get halfway speed-wise home than to get out and see who can drive the fastest and tailgate and do. Our city is too fast. I'm telling you right now, and I would hope we can, this future years, we can look at that. Maybe we need to bust a few people and take their paycheck away from them for a while. This town is so fast. Now you say, oh, it's not as fast as Timbuktu. I don't care about Timbuktu. I care about this town. So And I'm not in any way, am I anxious to start over. That's gonna make us have another look at this whole general plan and throw 6 years down the tube because some young people wanna go faster. I'm just not, I'm not beyond my time. I don't mind somebody else driving fast maybe. It scares me, but I let them drive. I'm not driving it. And I don't think this town has to have a level of service. Hey, just because we have what Roger and his crew, the younger people, don't like, that's tough luck. Eventually, if you pay attention to what we're putting on you, you'll live to be as old as I am, or you won't live to be as old as I am. Or more important, you might live, but you kill people en route to it. That's wrong. So this business of talking about changing the level to satisfy a group that likes to go quicker and faster. I used to tell my daughter when she was young, and now she's 50-some years old, if you have to go somewhere, leave earlier. You don't have to speed to get there. Get it into consideration, okay? So when people tell me they're bogged down at this intersection, why the hell didn't you plan on that? If that intersection gets you every year or every time you go, you'd think you'd be smart enough to learn how to get around it. I mean, I know what Roger, he has a group that feels it exactly that, and they're all on Facebook.
My thoughts at all. I'm not trying to speed. I'm trying to set standards, high standards. That's what folks expect in Folsom. It's not about going fast. I don't mind sitting in traffic.
You know,
I don't want to shoot for lower standards.
No,
than
wait
there
a
are.
minute. Setting high standards is one thing. Achieving them is another thing. You can set a low one and exceed it. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, you don't have to live by. If you set the lowest standards, is what you said, we'll make it lower. What's the motivation to move it up? If we set it at a medium, we can do, but it is inconvenience. Our obligation to the people that are being inconvenienced, including us, is to try to improve it. Whatever Mark says about the innovations, what you have in your mind about the innovations, fine. Okay? If it's just money, we'll find the money.
What reason is there to improve a level of F if we're meeting a level of F?
Yeah, but I drive this probably more than you do because you have other options. I just drive around. I don't mind waiting at F if I know I'm going to get safely on the road that I'm waiting to get on. That doesn't bother me a bit. But I don't want to get on and compete with some guy that, some young kid that, a young man or a young lady, men, to see who can get faster from A to B. What the hell is that all about? Come on, give us a break, slow down, and be respectful and get there, and everybody live a long life.
I'm going to jump in because I know that my colleagues on the other end want to jump in. So
That's
Roger,
all
you have
right.
some further thoughts as well? Did you have
No,
some?
I think it's, yeah. I mean,
Okay, so Andy?
So just kind of a quick question, and this gets back to really our plan area public financing plan. So Jim, when that was developed, and man, a lot of information went into that as far as, that we talked about $1 billion worth of infrastructure down there. So when all those numbers were ground out and calculated, what were we assuming level of service in that area when we developed our traffic impact fee schedule?
That might be something.
I'm not sure I'm the one to answer that. Mark was involved in that.
Well,
from the technical side.
Right.
I was involved in it then from just the financial numbers.
So if I understand your question, Councilman Moran, what was the level of service basis for the fee structure south of 50?
Yeah, the assumption when we were going through the calculation for, traffic impact fees and things like that.
Right. So again, without having the document in front of me, I believe the target for the roadway infrastructure south of 50 was a level service D. It still assumed the current general plan policy for everything north of the highway and in the other jurisdictions around the plan area. And so therefore, the environmental document for the plan area did address, to the extent possible, mitigation measures for intersections north of the highway, and for Highway 50 itself, and for some of the county roadways in the vicinity.
So with let's say this general plan was adopted at some point. It doesn't reduce the, our impact fee schedule for, I mean, we're not starting to give discounts for transportation plans south of Highway 50 as far as the funding mechanisms for those, right? So we're not lowering this below what we assumed, so that all of a sudden the development community could say, well, this is, I got a lower standard now, so I shouldn't have to pay as much per house and per commercial square foot as far as impact fee money.
That's correct. We
Okay.
would not be lowering those.
Okay, I wanted to make sure that, because again, it seems like there's different places we're using these levels of service, and it is kind of critical that, we don't open ourselves up for all of a sudden somebody saying, well, that changed, shouldn't cost as much, right? So, so that answers that. A lot's been said. It is, I think great points on both sides. And I guess the way I would approach this is that I do think there's a lot of opportunity for non-asphalt solutions to improving traffic, just as was alluded to. So I'm just going to finish this up with the first of many pitches for a measure that's going to be on the November ballot here in Folsom, which is a half-cent sales tax that stays local. And it is my dream that the major portion of $100 million that'll be generated out of this over the course of 10 years after sunset would be directed at our parks, trails, and transportation. I mean, those are topics that come up. So that's an appeal and a pitch, and you're going to hear that a lot from me. But other communities are doing this. They're keeping significant amounts of local tax money in their communities. And this discussion just reminds me of things that we could be doing. Giving Mark all kinds of toys to, advance, the intelligent traffic system and things like that. But I know that's a little bit off topic, but, I figured there was an opening to mention that. Just back to this document, it's a $1 million document based on some of the numbers I've seen. And that doesn't count the thousands of hours that many of our residents and businesses have contributed, commentary-wise and whatnot. I think it's important to remember, level of service, trying to insist that, city councils that are about to be voted on refrain from voting on something is pretty preposterous in my mind. So I'm excited to vote on this when we finally get to that point. But I think it's also important to remember that our last general plan that was done had many general plan amendments along the way. Things change. We get applications for amendments. And it is a document that does move with time, moves with changes that we can't anticipate. We build so much into this, but we certainly can't anticipate everything. So a future council, Roger could easily propose that, there needs to be a change, and, with council support, amendments is an option for this document moving forward, which I assure you will happen. So I'll stop there. I'll probably have a few more comments the next time we address this, but I appreciate the discussion. This is a wonderful piece of work. In fact, I just want to finish by reading one thing here. This was my favorite. So we got the 19 guiding principles. Carrie's got the one she hates the worst. I've got the one I like the most. So guiding principle 13, foster economic growth and diversity to become recognized as one of the smartest cities in the region. And underneath that it says build a thriving, innovation-based economy that creates new jobs, welcomes businesses and entrepreneurship. support the incubation of new startups as well as the efforts of Folsom Cordova School District, Folsom Lake College to provide quality education to the community and beyond, foster partnerships between educational institutions and local employers to grow a highly educated local workforce. And the reason I love that is it brings our schools, our city government, and our business community all together with the partnerships that we really, that I feel make this community a lot of what it's all about. So we can get stuck on things we disagree on, but that's just an example of, I think, a lot of what future city councils and future residents and future businesses will really be aiming for. So my thanks to everybody who's poured so much time into this, and the taxpayers who have poured so much money into this. But it is something to be proud of, and we're going to land somewhere that's going to, in a short month or so here, that's going to, bring us into the future, I think, in a great way. So thanks again.
Hear any comments?
Yep. Thanks to all the folks on the consulting team, the staff that have worked on this document. And I'm going to go along with Andy's comment that it's $1 million document. No, it's actually much more than $1 million document, because we paid the consultants over the last 6+ years $1 million, or very close to $1 million. So that really doesn't account for the staff time that was involved. And every department in the city of Folsom has been involved in this document. So I would prefer that we're actually voting on it tonight. This has been 6 years in the making, and this council has been paying pretty close attention to this for a year and a half, specifically the last 5 months. Maybe I don't have enough going on in my life, but I actually have read every word of all the documents. So I guess I'm just more boring than you guys. And so I was really looking forward to voting on this tonight. If it has to be delayed till the end of August, then so be it. But my preference would be tonight. And with regard to the level of service, I have no interest in revisiting the environmental document. I am happy to sit at a light for up to an extra minute or suffer a minute's worth of delays so that we're not building ridiculously wide roadways. And I don't think that's the right way to go. And we don't have level of service F within the existing city unless there's a car accident or some other major issue. So I can live with an extra 65 seconds at E or 45 seconds at level of service D. And I'm going to go along with Ernie's recommendation. If you're in that much of a rush, you should have left 10 minutes ago. That gives you those extra minutes that you might get stuck in traffic. So I have no interest in revisiting this, not after 30 years with the existing general plan. I want to see this move forward.
Okay, so we do have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any further discussion? Call the roll on the motion, please, to continue to August 28th.
Councilmember Howell?
Yes.
Moran?
Yes.
Sheldon?
Yes.
Gaylord?
Yes.
And Miklos?
Yes. Okay, next item, please.
Your next item is your last discussion item tonight. This is public hearing item 8A, resolution number 10156, approving and confirming the report of delinquent utilities charges and requesting Sacramento County to collect such charges on the tax roll.
Jim, you always get to follow the best, don't you?
I'll move the item unless somebody really wants to hear Jim go through the annual details of this.
Second.
But,
It's a public hearing, so you just introduce the item. I can open a public hearing for discussion, and then we can take the vote on the motion in a second. So brief introduction is, I think, all we need.
This is your annual report on the delinquent utility charges, and it's essentially asking you to request the county auditor to transfer the delinquent amounts of the property tax to the property tax rolls for collection.
Which we do every year.
Okay, any questions of Jim?
Only question, I get it, you say you're not, this is not delinquent on businesses, it's residential, and I see $3,000 and $4,000 delinquency. How can we help people get out of that?
We do have a method of, if they come in, of working out a payment plan for people who have that high a bill or even a lower delinquency account. So they're on what becomes essentially an agreement to pay that on an ongoing basis. it's a reduced amount, and usually people will certainly sign that rather than have property liened and shut-offs.
That's, for a resident to be pouring $3,000 in arrears for their utilities.
Well, yeah, we'd be in touch with them before
I'm sure you
that,
are.
certainly,
Yeah, I know you
yes.
are.
Okay, any further questions of Jim?
No.
Okay, this is a public hearing. I'll open a public hearing. Public hearing is now open. I do not have any written requests. Anybody wishing to come down, please do so. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. We do have a motion and a second on the floor, so if there's no further discussion, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Howell?
Yes.
Moran?
Yes.
Sheldon?
Yes.
Gaylord?
Yes.
And Miklos?
Yes, and next item, please.
Next item is city manager reports.
Good evening, everyone. This is my 8th day on the job, and I'm enjoying every minute, so I wanted to thank the mayor and council again for this extraordinary opportunity. I'm very pleased to share that I have named Jim Francis as our new assistant city manager, effective immediately. And in true City Hall tradition, we reward excellent work with more work, so he will still maintain his duties as HR director and CFO at the same time. So congratulations and thanks to Jim.
You must have been absent the day where they were talking about that and you got stuck. Well, congratulations.
I also wanted to congratulate Lori Easterwood, our library manager, who I recently promoted to library director, making her a full-fledged department head, which is long overdue. So thank you, Lori, for your service. We all enjoyed the grand opening of Folsom's newest park, Economy Park, which is at the corner of North Parkway and Blue Ravine. So I encourage everyone out there to visit a beautiful new park that includes turf fields, bocce ball courts, tennis courts, a walking path, all kinds of amenities. So please make your way out there. And finally, our, hard to believe, but our 5th annual Community Service Day is coming up on September 15th. And so beginning Monday, you can log on to folsomcommunityservice.org to pick a project that you would like to volunteer for in September. I believe we have over 40 projects at this time. And that's it for me tonight. Thank you.
Come on, give me a break.
Next item is city council comments.
Okay, who wants to start? Andy Man?
I'll jump in briefly. Congratulations, Jim. Congratulations, Lori. That was great news. Not unexpected by, I think, any of us here. So so they look forward to your expanded roles. So Mike mentioned our regional transit board meeting last night, and I just need to clarify, it is the Glenn Robert Holderness Light Rail Station. It is not the Robert G. Holderness Attorney at Law Light Rail Station. That was funny, Mike. I like that. But yeah, it was very well received, unanimous decision at our regional transit board, and went very well. Thanks for coming out for that, Bob. The people who know you there really appreciate what you've done. So thank you. And then lastly, I'll just say that it appears that there is a lot of strong interest in running for city council for this November. I don't know what the latest count of interest is, but the filing deadline for that will be August 15th, and encourage anybody who's considering that, you know, if you observed what went on here this evening, there's many rewards. But I do. It's encouraging to see the interest, and I know we'll have great candidates this coming November. So, with that, good evening.
Carrie?
Just encourage everybody to drive carefully. Stop at lights, stop at stop signs. All those things actually apply to you. And should you choose not to do that, I hope that you have the opportunity to meet one of the members of the Folsom Police Department, and perhaps that will remind you for future outings to actually pay attention to these suggestions that I give every other Tuesday. Be nice to your neighbors. Congratulations to Elaine. Looking forward to working with you. And to Jim, wearing all 3 of your hats. They look lovely.
Roger?
Congratulations, Jim and Lori. It's awesome, and I have nothing else. Thanks.
Mr. Vice Mayor?
Well, ditto on all the congratulations. They're all well deserved, no question. I just wanted, I've talked enough tonight. I just want to comment on the Economy Park dedication. I've been on a lot of dedications along with Robert. I think this has got to be the biggest attended that I've ever seen. I know we went through almost 400 free ice creams. And I had a laugh. I'll give you an example. We bought a lot of hot dogs so that everybody had something to do and eat. And the gentleman, Jack Baker, who is 1 year older than me, so he's really old, he bought all the merchandise and got it where they picked it up at the community center and took it down to the park. Well, he gave the young man that was doing it for Park and Rec explicit instructions to bring whatever is left back to the senior center or to the community center. He calls me the next day early in the morning and said, he didn't listen to me. He didn't bring, there's nothing in the walk-in. And I said, Jack, there's absolutely nothing left. They almost ate the grass. It was gone. Which is an example of, there's 4 groups involved, the Rotary, the Chamber, the Lions, and the FAA, along with all the support of the staff. It was a great deal for a great family, well-deserved. And Robert, I don't think your people could have done any better, including you. And so it's another big star on the achievements of the city.
Ditto, 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 and then some dittos. And congratulations on your first week. You got through it. She hasn't run from the building screaming just yet. Still early in her career, though. But congratulations again to Elaine, certainly Jim, and Lori. Congratulations. I still have to comment that probably one of the more frequent comments we hear is about our library. And we hear it more and more and more. And I'm talking about the regional committees and commissions we all sit on. When there's something that happens that comes up with the library, I just heard it say, just a few weeks ago, they mentioned they were up in our library, and it's like, yep, you should be. So congratulations, you got a great operation, and looking forward to newer and better things that we discussed before, but well-deserved, and congratulations. So with that, I'm just going to say meeting adjourned at 8:34, and everyone have a nice evening.
Kristen missed it.
I'm sorry.